All right. Hi. Good evening, folks. How y'all doing? Thank you for showing up. Thank you for joining me. I know I didn't do anything with y'all on Sunday evening because Sunday I wanted to take a little bit of a rest because I really was on the tired side. And of course, I ain't do a live Sunday evening, and by Monday, I had people in my inbox saying, so what? You ain't doing a live this evening or what? We want we time, give we back we time. So to the folks that messaged me on Sunday evening or on Monday to let me know that they need a live and they want a live immediately, I hear you and I am here. So I have a guest joining me this evening. But before the guests come on, I have to play this video because some of you may not have seen the video. This video real brighten up my morning, like hardcore brighten up my morning. So I'm going to play it for you and then I'm going to bring on my guests, right? Now play it on there.
Right. I live 28 years with sickle cell anemia. I've been to Porridge Hospital, Scarborough Hospital in Tobago, Rima Hospital, Mount Hospital, and Sangre Grande. The only place I think I ain't reached yet is Sando, right? And you see the food at Grande, it's different.
I'll pause this. So this morning, I don't even know how this reached in my feed, right? Somebody sends me the link to this video. They tag me on this video. And I'm watching this video, like, you must see what? 7 o'clock this morning, I'm watching this video and laughing to myself. Lie down in bed and bawling with laughter over this man who talking about food from the Sangre Grande Hospital. This man talking about food from the Sangre Grande Hospital like it's a 5-star restaurant here, So, there are a number of things that had me cracking up, right? Number one, he seems to have done a tour of all of the hospitals in Trinidad and Tobago except one hospital. And then he starts talking about the food. And where he touched my heart is when he started talking about porridge. Because I really like porridge. But let me listen to the rest of it.
It's different. You know, when you go to the hospital, they tell people to bring food there. Just like literally be good with people so that they bring KFC or castle or something horrible. Grandy had a home cooked food doggy. You think? Every day.
So I feel like this could be a slogan for Grande Hospital, right? Easily, Grande had a home cooked food doggy. I mean, like, how is Grande Hospital not considering using this as a slogan? But let us finish listening. The gentleman's name, by the way, is Johann, right? Johann Harry. And I'm bringing Johann on just now to talk to us. But we had to finish listening to this video.
And it tasting good every day. They have a porridge in the morning. Porridge. Porridge is to die for.
Yeah, like Johann want to cry over this porridge.
Like if it is you in here and you're going on dehydrated, at least go out to the porridge shop. Go out to the porridge shop.
If you're going to die, at least go out with the porridge. Go out with the porridge. So by the time I hit that, I play this video like must see 5 or 6 times before I share it to my wall. And then of course it just kind of blew up because it was the last time I checked it was shared like 90 times. And the interesting thing is the sister of one of the persons who was a chef at the Grande Hospital, she reached out to me and said that her brother was the chef. And then eventually on the thread, this young man came up on the thread. Hi. Hi, Johann. How you doing?
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Good.
Johann, you are an absolute delight. An absolute delight. I can't begin to tell you the extent of the smile you put on my face this morning. Just listening to you. So the first thing, did you manage to leave the hospital?
Yeah, the video that Oli was actually looking at was shot 2 years ago.
2 years ago? Yeah. Okay, you shot the video yourself, like off your phone or something?
Yeah,
right.
I shot it on my phone while I was in the hospital.
Okay, all right. What were you in hospital for, if I may ask?
I suffer with sickle cell anemia,
Okay.
and I tend to be in the hospital quite frequently.
Okay. I'm sorry to hear that. That is when the blood cells are shaped a little bit different. Yes.
Yeah, the red blood cells are supposed to be shaped in a circular manner, but they're more shaped like a banana.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the shape of the blood cells, they get stuck in the joints and organs
Right.
and cause a lot of pain. They could also cause organ damage and organ failure. So
Okay.
it's a bad disease, but
Mm-hmm.
we have
Oh,
life.
yes, yes, yes. And I mean, you have life, and you gave us life. Let me say that video was plenty, plenty, plenty,
Uh,
plenty life. So,
nah, that porridge is
mm-hmm.
life. Porridge is life. No, I'm not even joking. I'm not
explain
even joking.
explain the porridge to me, please. I like porridge, and so I will.
Mhm.
I like porridge. Like porridge is something I eat on a regular. My favorite is
Right.
cornmeal porridge. What kind of porridge it is Grande Hospital doing for you?
No, no, Grandy just give you a cream of wheat.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you could get oats.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I never get a cornmeal from them, but
Okay.
I feel they do that as well. But I was never a porridge fan. I was not a person who just drink porridge. You
Mm-hmm.
understand? Since I was my grandmother, and they were like, hey, drink some porridge, drink some porridge. And a matter of fact, I want to tell you about the tea.
Sure.
I need to
Sure.
explain.
Sure. Sure. You take your time.
So I go in the Sangre Grande Hospital, and it is extreme pain. Now, if you notice in the video, you would have seen something hanging from my neck.
Yes.
Because they can get IV access on my hand, they had to put like a central line.
Ooh. Ooh. Down that.
Kind of hard.
Oh.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to like move my neck and thing. But I in the hospital, the is pain,
Mm-hmm.
plenty pain. Then a nurse came and she gave me the medication to stop the pain, but it was changing shifts. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how to describe this nurse. It's a nurse, her name is Nurse Etty.
Mm-hmm.
Her name is Etienne, but we call her Nurse Etty. Now, this woman is by far the most beautiful nurse I've ever seen in my life. Now, this woman graced the hospital ward, and I like, yo, I could deal with this pain now. I could deal with the pain now. I could deal with the pain. And I was in a position to handle the pain. And not 5 minutes after she came onto the ward,
Mm-hmm.
she walked down and she went to every single patient on the ward, asked them how they was going, asked them what going on with them. She was very, very pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
2 minutes after she would have walked back up, going back to the nurse's station, this man come and rested on the porridge, and what it was the porridge as well as some tea,
Mm-hmm.
as well as a sandwich. And yeah, ma'am, you really would like to taste the porridge. So I watching this one. Porridge is not my thing, so I'm not drinking no porridge. And I sipped that porridge. The only thing that was better than that porridge that day was in hands down. I'm not even joking. It's like, wow.
The only thing was Nurse Etienne. Only Nurse Etienne was better than the porridge.
Yes, that was the only thing better than the porridge that day. The only thing. Yeah, a matter of fact, moving forward, I used to look forward to the porridge and Nurse Etienne.
And how many days were you in hospital that time? That time around?
At that point in time, I think I stayed 2.5 weeks.
Okay, 2.5 weeks. And was porridge like a regular part of the meal program?
The beautiful thing about Sangre Grande Hospital is that they come before they actually bring the meals, and they ask it their choice between the porridge. They will regardless of where you will get tea, but they will give you a choice between the porridge and two other things. After tasting the porridge, the two other things didn't matter.
Okay, so you had the porridge fairly regularly while you were there.
I had the porridge every day, every day.
And Nurse Etienne was there for a lot of your stay as well.
I saw her. I made a concerted effort to see her as often as possible. Shout out to Nurse Etienne, very beautiful woman.
Shout out to Nurse Etienne. Nurse Etienne, I'm so happy to hear that you brought this amount of joy and comfort to Johann's life. Now, Johann, I get the impression that you've been to a number of hospitals. Is it as a result of the sickle cell?
Yeah. The only hospital within Trinidad that I have not seen would be anything on the south side.
Okay.
I have not. And thanks to COVID, I saw COVID hospital the other day.
Right. Yeah.
But
Were you tested positive with COVID?
yeah, I had COVID and I spent about a month and a half in the hospital for that.
Wow.
But
Is it as a is it as a result too of sickle cell that you had such a long stay at the hospital?
yeah, because I had the comorbidities, that is why they decided to ward me as
Right.
well as for the length of time as well. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And what were your symptoms like?
COVID was terrible.
Ooh.
COVID was terrible, and Miss Etienne wasn't there.
Oh, and you didn't have the Grande food either.
I didn't have the Granny food either.
So
It was hospital.
what else about the Grande menu did you like? I mean, I know you're real big up that porridge.
The pilau is second to none.
Mm-hmm.
On public holidays, they make very nice dishes on public holidays. Weekends as well, as you could get a Sunday lunch by Granny. If it is times hard and you have to fake a little illness
Mm-hmm.
and get nice warm Sunday lunch, you could check Granny. All the meals. I have not tasted a bad meal at Sangre Grande Hospital.
Okay.
As well as I'd like to point out, beyond the kitchen staff,
Mm-hmm.
within Trinidad and Tobago, Sangre Grande Hospital is by far the best hospital that we have at present.
I've heard so much about Grande, not just from you. There are other persons that are close to me that have had to be warded at Grande Hospital, and I've heard nothing but positive things about the service on the wards. And well, thanks to you today, I found out about the
Yeah.
food, because in talking to you today, I realized that I had like a couple friends on social media, not people that I know, but people that I met through Facebook. They work in the kitchens department at Grande. So they reached out and they told me, well, we work in the kitchen section at Grande, so we're really glad to see this video and blah, blah. And now I have the opportunity to try the porridge on Friday morning.
Listen, man. I want to give you a word of advice.
Mm-hmm.
Don't eat anything Thursday night.
I know. So nothing to.
Any best position.
So it's almost like a fasting from Thursday night. Fast.
Fast before, because your taste buds it's going to witness something that I never witnessed before. You need to be ready for this. You need to be ready for this.
So prep myself.
Prep yourself. Talk to yourself while you're going in. You understand? Before you take a spoon, you talk to yourself. Let yourself know this is not going to be a regular occurrence. Enjoy it while it lasts. Put yourself in that frame of mind.
And live in the moment. Live in the moment. Okay. All right. I taking a cameraman with me. I'm going to have it on film. I'm taking a cameraman with me.
Yo, don't let the cameraman watch you eating, because you're not going to eat like a normal person. I'm telling you, when I taste it, when I touch them lips, that's when it comes. So
Johann, what about it flavor wise was working for you? Like, was it the spices, the milk, the smoothness? What was going on?
Everything. I don't know. Like I feel they have a buck in the kitchen. Something supernatural working in that kitchen. I'm telling you. Something supernatural is assisting, because
you feel they walk over on that pot of porridge, boy?
I feel so. Because I want to marry somebody in that kitchen. And Miss Etienne.
So you feel it might be a problem where I go Grande and I might leave Grande? Feel like that?
You might not. Like, my family had to literally drag me out.
I had to go and try the porridge, because after the way you talk about our porridge, Johann, you pretty much say if it's your last meal you're planning to have that porridge,
Go out to the porridge. If they tell you can't eat anything after today, there is it. Go out to the porridge.
With the porridge.
Or make sure and get a little coleslaw.
The coleslaw.
Since it is heading up on Friday, get them a call, let them know, handle thing. Tell them go and put in a good word for you. Tell them everything govern. Understand? Cake, coleslaw, small portions, because they trust me, you can't handle it when they get too much.
Gotcha.
Too much goodness at one time. Pressure.
So Johann, tell me a little bit more about yourself, because I realize that you do these lives, you do social commentary. So tell me, how did you get into doing social commentary?
If I've been totally and completely honest with you, there was a situation that took place with myself and a young lady in Arima, and it was not a favorable situation.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, I spoke about the situation, and from the feedback, I just decided that I would speak on things that bother me.
Right.
And I started to speak about different things that are taking place in the country and in ways that we could better Trinidad and Tobago.
Right.
Understand? And I've been doing that for about 3 years, but I
Mm-hmm.
reached a point where I've decided that it's not feasible anymore. It don't make sense.
Why? Tell me
So
why. Tell me why does it not make sense for you anymore?
um, I was at a point where it is I believe that Trinidad was heading in a direction that was bad for Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay.
But we have arrived at a junction. We can't head back now.
Right.
The only way that there will be change is if we ignore totally and completely anybody over 18 and focus on the youth. That's the only way that we could save Trinidad and Tobago. We can't change the
You
older
feel like
heads.
it, like the situation can't be reversed.
It can't. It can't. I look at it from as many angles as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And the real issue is that we're not focusing on the things that we need to focus on. We would jump up and start to make noise when it is a young lady is murdered, and we say, "Oh my God, this, that, it's so bad. What we doing about this?"
Yeah.
But then we're hearing that these young ladies are being raped and murdered from men that live in communities with other people, and they have committed similar crimes in the past. We know about the things that they have been doing, and you understand, community is not standing up and doing anything about certain situations. So obviously, it is going to flow over.
Right.
And outside of just the communities, we have a police service that literally killed 3 young men on camera last year.
Mm-hmm.
None of these officers have been arrested. Not one of these officers have been arrested. One of them have been charged. But we keep hearing about investigations and investigations. Now, if they saw Johann Harry on camera shooting into anything, I would be bars. Understand? So we have a lot of different issues that nobody is willing to address, and the loudest voices make the noise. We are accustomed to noise. We like noise and we like to laugh.
Yeah.
And we laugh at things that aren't funny sometimes. I love a good laugh. I love a good laugh.
I mean, who doesn't like a good laugh? But you're absolutely right. There are a number of very serious issues that we make fun of, that we poke fun at, that we laugh about. Yeah. But Johann, I want to say this. We need prison reform, we need justice reform, and I feel like you have such a powerful voice, though. And I'm not talking about your voice as being loud. I'm talking about, you just did a simple video about how good the food was at a hospital, right? It was a really simple video about how good the food was. The camera was on you the entire time. Then you focused on the plate. Then you focused back to yourself. Your facial expression. I mean, I felt like I was there having that coleslaw with you. And when you talked about the porridge being life, it just made me feel really good about the service that Grande Hospital was providing. And I feel like if with 1 minute, a minute and a half of your life, you could be making people who don't know you at all feel more confident about the hospital system and the hospital system in Grande, then I don't know that you want to squander that kind of influence. I ain't trying to put I ain't trying to pressure you, Johann. I ain't trying to pressure you.
I totally and completely agree with you, and I understand what you're saying. But my grandfather used to say something, and three things that I would share. He said, "Trouble is come on a horseback, but it's leave on a snail." That is number one.
Right.
He also said that when jackass learn sense, things will sell there in the marketplace. So it's basically scarcity. When people have you all the time, when it is your voice is available all the time, then what you are saying doesn't hold the value that it holds when it is you withhold.
Gotcha.
You speak when it is you need to speak.
So kind of like
So
demand and supply.
yeah,
You don't want to
definitely demand.
you don't want to put a glut of yourself on the market. You don't want to overexpose yourself.
Yeah, I believe that there are things that I would love to speak about, and there are things that my mind will not allow me not to speak about. But I want it to be things that when it is I speak, people would say, you know what, he's saying something. It's
Yeah.
not just a situation that somebody come here and they talking on a video. It needs to be that at the end of what it is I say, that you could take away something from that and
Okay.
build on it.
Okay. Well, you know what? I feel very privileged that you agreed to take this phone call from me today. Because you
How
could
I
have.
could miss it. I've been looking at your videos for a while.
Oh, I didn't
For a
know
while, and
that. I didn't know
I'm
that.
come on, man. Come on, man.
No.
Which Trinidadian doesn't?
But,
Name a Trinidadian that doesn't.
Johan, listen,
Mm.
I make no assumptions. It never once occurred to me that you even watched any of the lives that I've done. So it never once
Now,
occurred to me. Okay.
I have. But I wanna say one thing though
Sure.
before we go any further. You have you have a good audience that is
Mm-hmm.
backing you,
Mm-hmm.
as well as you have beautiful content.
Yeah.
Do not under any circumstances, you know, don't betray the people that supporting you under any circumstances.
I am working
Because
really hard at not doing that.
yeah,
Because I feel
yeah,
like that's where I will fail.
immediately once it is you betray the ones that put you in that position, even
Mm-hmm.
though they might be able to benefit you.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a situation where these people could benefit you,
Mm-hmm.
but having a good name
Mm-hmm.
speaks for you when you're not there.
You know what? There's no way that my audience can't not benefit me. And let me explain why I say that. There is
Mm-hmm.
there's no fee structure to anything that I'm doing here, right? I pick up myself, I do lives, then I don't charge anybody, nobody had to pay to access the content or anything like that. Nobody's paying me to be able to do the content. I started doing it in this regular way more so because I felt like there was so much misinformation and distortion out in the public domain, and there were certain kinds of conversations that I wanted to be able to have that regular mainstream media was not providing me with. I felt that talk radio wasn't doing anything for me at all, and I wanted to be able to have certain kinds of conversations. I would have the conversations on chat threads on Facebook, but I felt like more could be happening, and so I started doing the lives, right? And the lives, on the days that I'm not tired and I'm not exhausted, the lives can be a lot of fun to do because they're very interactive. I mean, there are tons of comments here right now that I can't even look at or respond to, but people are saying lots of great things from you. Lots of great things to you and about you right about now. Somebody's just saying, what? Grandy man get 1,000 views, we? But to get back to the point that you were making, I feel if the one way I get to measure or gauge my relevance and my success is through my audience. Like sometimes when I'm walking around Port of Spain, grandmothers, and of course I don't know that they're grandmothers until they start speaking to me. They'll pause. Rhoda? I'm like, yeah. And we'll start chatting and be like, Isla, my granddaughter, listen to you. And then, Johan, I am like, oh my God, this woman has her grandchild listening to me. So then I start thinking, I had to be real careful about what I say and how I say what I say, because somebody's grandchild. I don't know this woman from Adam or Eve. And she has decided that what is coming out of my mouth is important enough that she wants her grandchild to listen to me. I mean, things like that just rock me when people say to me, when you come on, I just take off everything else. I don't want anybody else in the house talking. When people message me to tell me that they're so upset that I didn't do a live and they didn't know what to do with themselves that afternoon. So things like that, it kind of puts things in perspective, and it shakes you up because you're there thinking, okay, this is some serious responsibility here. And of course, all of that forces me now to, I do even more reading than I was doing before when I have to do my lives, because I don't want to put any bad information out there, Dread. I don't want nobody say I say, you know what I mean? So I don't want you to stop doing commentary. I'm not going to force you to do commentary regularly. Do it when you're ready to do it, and do it in your time, because you will know your energy levels and things better than I could possibly know your energy levels. you see that smile and that spirit you have, Johann? Don't rob us
I
of that.
can't lose.
You can't lose it. And don't rob us of that smile and spirit, please.
I will never
Mm-hmm.
stop, and I would say this because this platform, the platform that I've created, it has helped me
Yeah.
so much, so much. One, with confidence, as well as it gives you an outlet to express yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Understand? And being expressive, when you have a creative mind, or a mind that does several things at one time, it's very nice to have something to focus on,
Mm-hmm.
something to channel it into. And that is what the videos provide.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. And the same way I say, when people come up there and they actually see that, what, my grandchild,
Mm-hmm.
it have mothers just be like, I wanted to sit down and talk to my son.
Mm-hmm.
I thinking to myself, like,
You
I
start to
don't
feel
think I the guy.
you start to feel the responsibility, right? I know. Listen, when people come and tell me I want you to talk to my son or my daughter about whatever it is, I just be thinking, I said, wait, boy, that's a lot of responsibility. Why you want me to get involved in your children's life? And so, whenever anybody messages me or inboxes and say, we want you to talk about this issue, or we want you to say something about this issue, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to take, I mean, sometimes it takes days or hours, depending on the topic, depending on the issue. And then I'll feel like I have to go and talk to a whole bunch of other persons who are more informed than I am on the issue to be able to come and talk about it. And it is a responsibility. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely
It is
right.
a very, very big responsibility, but just the fact that one person might be able to listen to something that you say, and you might be able, like with that video, somebody actually messaged me and say, yo, I see that video and it make my day. You just tell me that I make your entire day.
Johann,
You know it's that?
Johann, it wasn't just my entire day, Johann, I was craving porridge. Like right afterwards, I get up and I make porridge for breakfast because you say, if you had to go out with the porridge.
But when it comes to hospital food,
Mm-hmm.
Sangre Grande is the leader in its class.
What do you look for?
Personally,
What for you now? Now, because you're saying Sangre Grande is a leader, right?
yeah.
So, what you think the other hospitals need to do to produce the kind of what about Grande food you want to see happening with other hospitals?
All right. For starters, Grande gives you a home cooked feel. There's a
Right.
feeling like my grandmother could have made this.
The plate that you
Understand?
showed had a home cook look to it, eh?
Yeah.
In the video.
You're gonna get bay leaf in your porridge. You're gonna see the bay leaf in your porridge. You know it's serious. You know it's serious when you get the bay leaf. You know it's serious when you get the
What's
bay
this
leaf.
bay leaf you're saying? Oh.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Like in Mount Hope, they have this way that they would give you boxes for the food. Every single time they come to give a meal, they would give a box. But in Sangre Grande, it's like a plate. It's not like, all right, we're giving you something on the go. It's like we're giving you a meal.
Yeah.
And just that simple difference between you
A plate and a box.
and give them an actual cup instead of one of your Styrotex cups, it changes everything. The smell of the food. You could smell Grande food while they're cooking it. You could smell it while they're cooking it. So when it is that, and all of the wards in this hospital are air conditioned. So,
Right.
So for you to be smelling that food, you know it's here. You know it's here. And the look, the aesthetic of the food as well, the way that you could tell that it's put together with care. It's somebody actually putting this together with care. And then the people who come and hand out the food as well, they're very interactive. Well, saying, we're making soup later, you think guano chicken in soup, but think they interact with you. So you feel as if you're not really in a hospital, even though you're in a hospital.
Yeah.
That in itself is a beautiful thing. If the entire layout, Sangre Grande Hospital is a different hospital as compared to anywhere else. The wards, instead of like in Mount Hope, they would have maybe about 6 or 7 rooms on a ward and 4 people per room. No, Sangre Grande doesn't have the same space, but their wards is like an entire big room where everybody there. You understand? Where it is you could always look down and see a nurse. It's not a situation where you wondering if you could come off your bed to be able to come out to see if it is you could call a nurse or something like that.
Yeah.
Patients next day will get up and go and call the nurse. They have a community vibe even in the hospital, and that is something that is underappreciated.
Gotcha.
The people that work at Sangre Grande Hospital, a matter of fact, are even more happy to be able to say that I love Sangre Grande Hospital because my grandfather was the manager at Sangre Grande Hospital many years ago.
Was he? Oh my! Oh my!
So for me now to come and reap the benefits of his hard work, it does something.
It's a legacy thing. It's a legacy thing because you could look back and think my grandfather, my bloodline was responsible for how this place operating and running.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was part of the culture. So it's like that. Sangre Grande is if they can export anything, I would hope that they would export the nice nurse ratio. They have a 7 to 10. No, I'm not even joking. They have a 7 to 10 ratio with the nice nurses, and you can't get on nowhere else within Trinidad. Trust me. Don't talk about Monto. Pressure in the camp. So there are a lot of elements that make Sangre Grande Hospital more than a hospital.
Right. And it's a space that you felt safe in as a patient, yeah?
I felt safe, I felt comfortable. They even give you internet on the ward. Who does that? Sangre Grande.
Grande Hospital, exactly. Grande Hospital.
Yeah, they work well. They work really well, as they perform as a unit. And that is something that we don't see in the healthcare system. Well, I haven't seen in many of the other healthcare systems. I'm not saying that we have bad healthcare systems, but they could definitely learn something from
Grande. Gotcha. Yeah. Johann, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon and for sharing your spirit, your thoughts, your ideas, and all of the commentary about Porridge Food Grande Hospital. On Friday, I am taking your advice, a cleansing and fasting from Thursday night, because Friday morning, cleansing my palate, because Friday morning I'm going down to Grande Hospital. I'll be doing a tour of the kitchen. I will be getting some porridge, and I'll be going live, so everybody will be able to see and be a part of my experience.
Tell the cameraman walk with an extra person, because after you taste it, that might be you for the day. That might be you for the day.
I believe you.
If by chance you're lucky enough to bounce up Nurse Atthe, please tell her Johann said he's in good health. I wish him all the best in every single thing.
I'm gonna ask to meet Nurse Atthe because I wanna see who this lady is, if she nicer than the porridge.
But I wanna say one thing before, because you have such a big platform, and I think that this is very important.
Sure.
We have a situation in Trinidad and Tobago where rape cases are going up. And when it is some of these men are held for rape, they are being placed on $300,000 bail as well as $100,000 bail, which really boils down to $30,000 or $10,000, or depending on how you look at it, because you only have to pay 10% of
the bail.
And that is insane. And if it is we want to protect our women or even provide an environment in which our women feel safe, we need to provide an environment where it doesn't amount to $10,000 or $30,000 to be able to rape a woman and walk the streets of Trinidad. So
I'm going to take note of that, because I'm meant to talk to the AG again soon. So I'm going to take note of that.
Please.
Yeah, I'm taking note of it right now. Johann, thank you so much for your time.
You have a blessed day. Keep your heads up. Everybody who here and who viewing, you all make a good choice. You understand? Or in the right place.
Thank you.
You all have a blessed and productive afternoon. Make sure and take a moment out all the day and thank God for life, health, and strength.
Okay.
But keep all the heads up, and we'll pick up sometime soon, man.
Yes, we will, Johann. Take care, my dear. Bye.
Blessings.
Blessings. Bye. And that was Johann Harry, Mr. Porridge. The man, I mean, he made my day. He made my morning. He absolutely made my morning. So, the other matter that I want to switch to, let me see what I could pull up here to use by way of background imaging, so that I would be, this is it. Whoops, no. Okay, right. So I want to talk about Tobago a little bit. And as I tend to do with many topics that are near and dear to me or that are personal to me, I will start with myself and then I will go out into something a little wider. My mother is Tobagonian, which means that I am part Tobagonian. I often tell people that I am mixed, and of course, because my father is of East Indian extract and my mother is of African extract, people tend to think that when I talk about being mixed, that I'm only talking about being Dogla or being of mixed extract. But what I'm really talking about is coming from two different cultural backgrounds. I come from two different cultural backgrounds. My father is a Trinidadian. My mother is a Tobagonian. I grew up with my father and his family first, the first 6 to 7 years of life. And thereafter, when I was about 7 years of age, I moved from living with my father and his family in an extended family household to living with my mother in what would essentially become a single parent household, right? And anybody who has Tobagonian parents will tell you Tobagonians different, and they're very different from Trinidadians. They have a different view of the world, they have a different approach to life, they do things differently. So moving from living with my father, who was Trinidadian, to living with my mother, who is Tobagonian, meant that I experienced a particular cultural shift. My father is, because was would mean that he's no longer here. My father is light-hearted, easygoing, loves a laugh, you know. He ain't too fussy about things like time and punctuality, that sort of thing. My mother, very strict. Strict about time, strict about life in general. Very very hardworking. And very focused on details and achievement, right? Making sure that you achieve. My mother is also from Leketo, right? I wanted to put that out there because from time to time, people say things about people from Leketo. People say things about the village of Leketo. And it is very much an ethnic stereotype because they like to talk about Tobagonians as if Tobagonians only know to work obia. And that's actually quite racist to speak about Tobagonians in that way. We also tend to talk about Tobagonians as if Tobagonians are backward, as if Tobagonians are children, as if Tobagonians don't know how to do things for themselves. So, I'll pull up this map of Tobago, so all you will recognize that is Tobago, and all you will recognize that we're going to talk about Tobago. It's an old map. It's a map from 1779. And the reason I pull up this old map of Tobago is to establish a couple things for you all. We're going to talk about Tobago self-government this evening. And we're talking about Tobago self-government this evening. But I want all you to understand something about Tobago. Tobago is an old colony. Tobago is an older colony than Trinidad is. Whilst Spain got here in 1492, this Spanish and them didn't really try to colonize or develop Trinidad as a colony in any significant or serious way. Tobago, on the other hand, would have been colonized by multiple European countries. Spain stumbled up on, Spain reached here and tried to squat on Tobago first. And then after that, Tobago changed hands between the French, the Dutch, and then eventually we settled into the English, right? And Tobago running its affairs since somewhere around the 1600s. And when I say running its affairs, I mean Tobago has had a legislative council since the 17th century, if I am not mistaken. So we in Trinidad only really started having development as a colony and having any sort of government and governance on the island in the 1800s, right? We have spoken here in the past about how Trinidad got colonized. So Spain was squatting, right, as landowners from the 1500s, come all the way down to 1783. And then in 1783, Spain decided to bring in a set of French Creole persons with their enslaved people. And then by 1797, the Brits and them arrived here. That's in Trinidad. But Tobago had like a whole legislative council thing going on, where the people who own land, the estate owners and thing, they were sitting on a legislative council. What is like how the THA is right now? They're sitting on a council and calling shots for themselves. Why am I telling you this? I am telling you this so that you understand that Tobago, as an island colony, whether it was under the French or under the Dutch and then eventually under the British, as an island colony, Tobago was accustomed to doing for itself. Tobago was accustomed to running its affairs, right? And Trinidad, as an island colony, eventually settled and under British colonial rule, came into its own long after Tobago. So in a sense, Trinidad, even though it is the bigger island, is younger in terms of government and governance. So I want you to understand this. You might have a small island, right? You have a small island that are accustomed to running its affairs for centuries, right? At least a good century and more than Trinidad was accustomed to. And then late down in the 1800s, right? The 1880s thereabouts. So just before you're coming into the 20th century. Late in the 1800s, Britain decides, you know what? We need to start to merge up some of these colonies and, put them together. For economic reasons, right? Economic reasons. That's what it was going on there, because Britain just basically didn't want to have to be, all of the money that it was sucking out of the Caribbean, it didn't want to have to put all of that money back into the Caribbean. So it decided to merge a number of islands, unify, form unions between a number of islands. And at first, it's not Trinidad that it was planning to link up Tobago with. Britain was thinking, okay, I could link up Tobago with Barbados, so I could link up Tobago with St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That is what Britain was thinking about in the 1800s, right? So in the 1800s, the late 1800s, the 1880s thereabouts, when Britain was beginning to think, well, what to do with Tobago, boy? It was thinking it could link up Tobago with other islands. And then eventually, it decided to link Tobago up with Trinidad. And let me tell you why that caused so much problems. Because Tobago had a legislative assembly and Trinidad had crown colony government. And there's a huge difference between legislative assembly and crown colony government. With crown colony government, everything was settled in the governor's hand. So whoever was the governor of the island, whether it's Chacon or Picton or Woodford or whoever it is, whoever is the governor of the island, that's the person who handling all of the power in that one person's hand. Whereas when you had a legislative assembly, you had any number of planters, right, estate owners from different parts of the island, and the power was kind of spread out and different people had a say. When you merge two different island colonies, that have two different governance systems and two different governance structures, what you cause is a lot of tension. Plenty tension. And that is the point that I want to get to here. Tobago and Trinidad and governance and independence and autonomy have been very, very, very intense, tricky conversations that we have been trying to have. Since as a little child in my mother's house, I hearing about A&R Robinson and the Tobago House of Assembly and the re-establishment of the Tobago House of Assembly. Because after the merging of Trinidad and Tobago, where the wording claims that Tobago became a ward of Trinidad, which of course causing problems for Tobagonians, and I understand why, because the language is a very belittling kind of language. Imagine you running your affairs for however long, right? A good century at least before Trinidad and Tobago was doing anything at all. And then boom, shut. Somebody in a foreign country sign a document. And you, big Tobago, who are accustomed handling its own affairs, you become a ward of Trinidad. And Trinidadians watching it like, why why we ain't really need you. What is you coming here for? You only leeching money off of we. You're a mendicant, you're a beggar, right? You're backward, you're all kind of thing. Right? Those are the issues at hand here. So you have a situation where independence comes in 1962. Right? And when independence comes in 1962, we become independent, Trinidad and Tobago. But there is still a lot of underdevelopment taking place in Tobago, and Tobago still wants to be in a position where it can govern itself. Eric Williams would have at that point in time set up a ministry for Tobago affairs, right? And I think he was handling that at a point in time. And then there might have been, I think Patrick Solomon or somebody with the last name Solomon would have been handling things. And what was supposed to be taking place was the improvement of infrastructure in Tobago. Because Trinidad, as a larger island, with of course a booming sugar and cocoa and eventually fuel economy, there was more development here on the larger island. The money that was within the colony, more of it was being spent here than was being spent in Tobago. So there was for quite some time a lot of disparity in terms of the level of development in Trinidad versus in Tobago. And from the 1960s to now, it's been a long, tense situation where people have been trying to strive for balance. Now, A&R Robinson used to be a member of the PNM. He was actually a prized minister in Eric Williams's administration. And then Robinson eventually left the PNM and he would have started his own party, the DAC, if I am not mistaken. And in the late 70s, Robinson would have gotten up in Parliament and begun to argue for the establishment of the re-establishment, the return of the Tobago House of Assembly. So this way we're talking about the Tobago House of Assembly as if it was always ever there. No, it wasn't always ever there. The assembly was there for quite some time. Then with the merging of Trinidad and Tobago in 1898, that got disbanded. And then for a very long time, there was no THA. Tobago didn't have a say in terms of how things was happening internally within the island. And then it is under Robinson in 1980 that the THA came back into being. So I grew up at home hearing constantly about the THA and why the THA was important. Hearing about Robinson, hearing about Ho Choi Charles, right? Then, and all of the various chief secretaries of the THA and the importance of the THA in terms of allowing Tobago to run its affairs. Now, I want all you to listen to me here and study this, right? Thank you, Angela Madu. Yes, it was the ACDC and then it became the DAC. All you need to understand is, most of you here that are listening to me, all you big, all you over 18. Imagine you over 18 and you waiting on somebody to tell you that you're allowed to do things. Imagine you over 18 and you consistently have to be seeking permission from the other adults around you to do things, and you are already an adult and shouldn't have to be seeking permission to do things. That's how you have to focus and factor in the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago. Because Tobagonians are persons. Tobagonians are persons. It's an entire culture of people who they could run their affairs. They don't have to wait to be told by others how to handle their affairs and how to run a country. We didn't feel in 1962 that we wanted Britain to continue to tell us how to run our affairs and how to run a country. We didn't want that. That's why there was the whole movement for independence. Now, I want to pull back now and point out something. The two islands became a union in 1898. And if the two islands became a union in 1898 and they want to continue to remain a union, we're not discussing independence. We're not discussing Tobago being independent of Trinidad. We are not discussing Tobago seceding and leaving the union and going on its own. Rather, what we are discussing is, how do we make changes to our legislation in such a way that Tobago is now in a position where it has agency, it has autonomy in its relationship with Trinidad, and it sees itself as being on an equal footing in its relationship with Trinidad, and so it does not have to feel as if it is inferior to Trinidad. That is what this entire self-governance debate is supposed to be about. But we have a situation where the debate isn't just involving Tobagonians alone. You have a significant amount of Trinidadians who are weighing in to tell Tobago how to think about autonomy. Now, for legislation to change, it had to change inside the parliament. And unfortunately, when the legislation had to change inside the parliament, and it requires a significant majority, a special majority, which is what this legislation requires, it means that the opposition has to get involved. And this is the UNC opposition. Because you could have a different kind of opposition, And I'm telling all you, if we had a different kind of opposition, the foolishness that has gone on in the last 2 days with this debate on Tobago self-governance was not going to take place. Because this debate, the debate that happened in the last 2 days, based on a piece of legislation, based on a bill that's sat down in the parliament since 2018. Since 2018, right? Since 2018, and the 9th of June this year is when the debate was tabled for so everybody knows since the 9th of June this debate going to take place. The piece of legislation that they started debating in the last 2 days, since 2018, this version of the legislation there, because there's been consultation, a lot of consultation. As a matter of fact, the parliament this year, it might have been in January, the parliament earlier on in the year had a series of virtual consultations, and I listened to Ho Choi Charles and any number of other persons, Farley, all of them, come and weigh in on the legislation, right? So I listened to that. Then I knew that the thing was tabled and the legislation had to be debated. So Monday I tune in for the debate. Now, the leader of government business is the person who would have kicked off the debate, right? Camille Robinson Regis. And Camille Robinson Regis, I figure plenty people don't know this, but Camille Robinson Regis have Tobago roots. So I wasn't sure why people were confused about the leader of government business being the person to kick this off, especially since she has Tobago roots. And I know she had Tobago roots because, as I tell earlier at the start of this, my mother had Tobago roots, and my mother knows Camille Robinson Regis's family, and right, everybody know one another. Right, good. So the debate starts. Now I want to tell all of this because I eventually had a segue to the opposition. I have to talk about the opposition and the opposition's role in passing legislation. The debate begins and Kamla Persad-Bissessar goes into the House for a few minutes and then she leaves. Why is that important? Let me tell you why that is important. It is important because since 1962, with the changeover from being a colony to being a constitution, this particular debate is probably one of the most important debates of the country's life. Because you're looking at an island within a twin island nation saying that it wants autonomy, saying that it wants a certain amount of power to be able to do things for itself. You are also looking at the fact that persons who are representing the interests of people on the island of Tobago are also saying that the island wants to secede. So if Tobagonians decide they want to secede, it changes how we exist as a twin island nation. And while you all might think that is a easy and that's an easy thing, it's not. Right? It is not. Look at the madness going on in the UK with Brexit. Brexit is something I sit down and I laugh at for the last 4 years or so of my life, thinking to myself, how could the Brits have gotten this so wrong? Well, I understand this week how the Brits could have gotten it so wrong. Because they had a hostile opposition. So we are sitting here this week, well, not just this week, the last 6 years with a hostile and obstructionist opposition. And I thought to myself, between yesterday and today, Kamla don't understand strategy, you know. She don't understand strategy at all. Because if I was the opposition leader of a political party, and I know I have no foothold in Tobago at all, because her foothold in Tobago is so weak that she, as the UNC, cannot even put candidates up in Tobago. She can't. The UNC cannot field the candidates in Tobago. The UNC has to go through another party like the PDP. So they will fund another party and have that other party put up candidates in Tobago because they know from 2010 to 2015, the foolishness that they did in Tobago has the UNC so unwelcomed in Tobago that the only way the UNC can have any sort of influence in Tobago is through funding of another party. So you have put the PDP there, right? Or you're funding the PDP that is there. Important legislation like this going down in the House. And you are not playing any role at all in helping the legislation move forward. Now, I'm not saying that the opposition had a vote in favor of the legislation, you know. I am saying that if you want things to happen in Tobago and Tobagonians' favor, where the island wants autonomy, people want autonomy. I'm not saying that they want to secede. I'm saying that they want autonomy. Then a smart and intelligent opposition leader would sit down in the House at the committee stage and get the government, as a matter of fact, finesse the government and maneuver the government into making all of the changes on the legislation that she knows will benefit her party in 2025. So I sit down and I watching this debate the last 2 days and I saying to myself, well, if Kamla go sit down in the debate and she go make sure that she bring forward a powerful position on the debate, and she will make sure that she is part and parcel of the passing of a particular piece of legislation that will have Tobagonians in 2025 thanking her. Right? So I sit down and I say to myself, well, boy, we go see strategy in this house here today. What do I see in the house? Monday and Tuesday, Kamala not present. Like I said, she shows up for a few minutes the Monday morning. Then the rest of the day, she has her MPs talking, and they're talking a bag of ass. Me ashamed to say it, is a bag of ass they talk. Right? One of the biggest embarrassments of that debate was Vandana Mohit. I don't understand. Vandana, as a woman, you can't pull up your socks and come with a better game. You're bound to show up and sound so dance all the time. No, Vandana, stop dragging the flag. Stop dragging the flag. As a woman, I was embarrassed to listen to you yesterday. So then there was a Monday aspect of the debate. Then there was day 2 of the debate. Kamala doesn't show up. This is one of the most important pieces of legislation we move in from 1962 to now, you know. Kamala not in the house. Right? You have David Lee talk a set of foolishness. You have Padarak talk a set of foolishness. You had Rudy Indar Singh talk a set of foolishness. Mispronouncing people's name. Dave Tanku, a set of foolishness. Arnold Ram, a set of foolishness. Listen, when I tell you, shit come out them out. Right? Left, right and center. And at every single turn, every opposition MP that got up, you know what they got up to say? There was not enough consultation on the bill. And here's what I want all you to understand. I just tell all you that that bill sitting down there in this form, this specific form, since 2018. There have been numerous JSCs and there have been numerous consultations. And before 2018, since 2006, there was a white paper in Tobago, right? Getting feedback from Tobagonians. Then, I don't know how many of you all remember this. All remember 2012 when they had the red wash, when Kamala lost the THA? When Kamala lost the THA, a week before she lost the THA, she ran into the parliament and she tabled a debate for self-governance, right? For Tobago self-governance that was giving Tobagonians nothing that they asked for. And so the bill was rejected. It was rejected out of hand. But somehow the whole opposition forget the role that Kamala Prasad Bissessa and her 26 or however many, no 29, it was 29, yeah. That they forget the role that Kamala and her 29 MPs played back in 2012 in losing the THA because they lied to Tobagonians. So jump forward to 2021, right? Was it nine? That was what, 9 years? Because next year would make it a decade, right? Jump forward to 2021, 9 years later, and Kamala Prasad Bissessa decides that she is going to continue to toy with the emotions of Tobagonians. She ain't show up for the debate. When it's time for her to speak, she ain't show up to speak. So the Prime Minister gets up and he decides that he is now going to wrap up the debate, because there's nobody else from the opposition who has put forward his or her name to speak. And while the Prime Minister is speaking, Kamala Prasad Bissessa run into the parliament and make a heaping set of noise. And then pick up herself and the rest of she MPs and them, and they stage a walkout. And they staged a walkout so that nobody would report that the opposition and the opposition leader didn't actually show up to debate the bill with any preparation at all. Because if you followed the debate for the last 2 days, you would have seen how underprepared the opposition was for what was easily the most significant piece of legislation to pass in the last, 50-something years of our independence. So there are a couple of clips that I want us to look at, right? A couple of clips that I want us to pay attention to, because it have a certain noise that Kamala and them making. And it's noise that, again, if you was following the thing, it ain't making any sense. It ain't making no sense at all. So I want to start with what Kamala claims is the problem. The problem with what is went on in the house yesterday, right? Why she decided to walk off. Right. are blocking off David Lee face. And I'm in the mood right now.
We maintain our position that the Rowley government does not have the interests of the people of Trinidad and Tobago at heart. They're moving to push their own political agenda, and that becomes clearer today as they come to a third day to debate bills that they began debating on Monday. I think we will be derelict in our duty as members of Parliament.
You know when she was derelict in her duty? By not showing up for the debate. And the thing about it is, 4 consecutive debates in a row, Kamala has not shown up for. And nobody in the media points those things out. 4 consecutive debates. She is paid to come to participate in debates. She is paid to represent not just the persons in her constituency, but the 300,000 people that voted for her. Right? She is paid to come and represent and legislate on their behalf and petition on their behalf inside of the parliament. Where has Kamala Persad Bissessar been for the last 4 debates? And how come no media house, no mainstream media house is pointing out that this woman is never present for work?
If we stayed to participate in their railroading and destruction of our parliamentary democracy, we cannot cut and paste rules to suit a political agenda, which is what the PNM did yesterday and which they're doing now. Rowley hijacked the debate by using 2 hours. And what did he do?
So this is where the lion starts, right? The debate was not hijacked. There are things called standing orders. And in the course of the debate, the leader of government business gave way to the Prime Minister and allowed the Prime Minister to wrap up and to use her time. And then a motion, after he spoke for about an hour, towards the end of the first hour, Kamala Persad Bissessar came in, interrupted his time. And then after Kamala staged the walkout and left the parliament, a motion was moved. So she wasn't present for any of that, right? A motion was moved, and all of this falls under the way our parliament runs. All of this covered by the standing orders. A motion was moved to grant the Prime Minister a further 60 minutes. And all of those things are standing orders and changes to the legislation that Kamala Persad Bissessar and Wade Mark put in place. That's the beauty and the irony of the thing, you know. Right? That a number of things that happened in Parliament yesterday that Kamala called press conference about today are things that she and her Speaker of the House put in place when they were there.
Didn't come to explain the legislation. Instead, he took his 2 hours to really pelt attacks on Tobagonians who were standing for their rights. He said nothing about the benefits to Tobago or the legislation.
Lies. The entire debate, various MPs from the government side pointed out all of the various aspects of the legislation, what was positive, what was negative. The Prime Minister, in his 2-hour wrap-up, would have covered a range of issues to do with the legislation. But you know what? I've had a minute of Kamala. I've had a minute of lies. I need to cleanse and purge my soul. And let's listen to something else that making a little bit more sense here. Right? I'm fed up deal with the lies. I'm real fed up deal with the lies. And you see this issue of Tobagonians and self-government and allowing Tobagonians to be able to determine how they go about their day-to-day life in Tobago and how they go about ruling and governing themselves. It's a very serious issue. It's a personal issue for me, and it should be a serious issue for the entire country. So to listen to Kamala talk this sort of foolishness she talked there, it real upset me today. In any case, I want you all to listen to this part here.
Prime Minister, am I correct in my understanding that you are exercising the right to reply under Standing Order 46.2?
So this is where the Prime Minister gets up to speak yesterday afternoon, right? And before he gets up, Kamala is not in the House right now. I should just point that out. The opposition leader is not in the House right now. She is wherever she is, but she's not in the chamber itself. Let me say she's not in the House. She's not in the chamber at this point in time. So an entire debate has taken place. 2 days of debate has taken place. We have gotten to the point where the wrap-up going to take place, and the opposition leader is nowhere in the chamber, so she cannot contribute to the debate. And when the Prime Minister gets to the speaking station, the speaking booth, the speaker asks, am I to take it that you are exercising Standing Order 46.2? After this video clip, we're going to look at Standing Order 46.2.
Yes, Madam Speaker.
And therefore your time is 60 minutes.
Madam Speaker, I am also assuming that in representing the member for Aruka Maloney, and therefore I think I am entitled to ask for a little bit more time on that behalf. I'm winding up in my capacity as leader of the government and also as representing the mover of the motion.
Yeah, so I understand, Prime Minister, that you are exercising the right of reply under Standing Order 46.2 because the mover would have ceded her right. I understand that. So that under the motion that exists, it is 60 minutes.
And how much do I have?
60 minutes, Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is...
So he is granted 60 minutes. Let me explain this a little bit better. The mover of the motion was Camille Robinson Regis, as I told you all before, the leader of government business. Because the nature of the debate was one that was critical of the government, and if you were following it for the last 2 days, you would realize that the opposition was extremely critical of the government and what the government was attempting to do with this particular bill. The Prime Minister then decided to activate this particular standing order, Standing Order 46.2, that says a minister, and the Prime Minister is also a minister, may conclude a debate on any motion that is critical of the government or reflects adversely on or is calculated to bring discredit upon the government or a government officer. Kamala, in her press conference today, pretty much says that as far as she is concerned, only motions brought by the opposition, so like motions and no confidence and stuff, only those things can fall under 46.2. What she did was, of course, tie up and twist up her tongue and does not want to admit that it may include a debate on any motion that is critical of the government. So she's basically saying, well, the motion doesn't criticize the government. The motion is just about bringing self-governance to Tobago. But that's not what took place in the debate. In the course of the debate, because it's not just the motion, it's a debate on any motion. And in that debate yesterday, the government was criticized. And it is on those grounds that the Prime Minister decided that he was going to conclude the debate. So instead of the mover of the motion, Camille Robinson Regis, concluding the debate, which is what normally happens, which is what ought to normally happen, the Prime Minister exercised the right of reply. And then after reply, an hour into the reply, after being disturbed by the opposition leader, a motion was then moved by Camille Robinson Regis as the leader of government business to grant the Prime Minister a further 60 minutes. Why? Because throughout his entire debate, he was interrupted. If you were listening, you would know. Throughout his entire debate, he was regularly interrupted. So that's that part of things. But I wanted you all to listen to this bit of history with respect to the THA. I give only a little bit of history at the start, talk a little bit about Tobago and the history of Tobago and Tobago having its own legislature. I want you all to hear this bit, because this is what I grew up hearing about in my home. And I want you all to understand how long our parliament here, under multiple governments, has been trying to get to the point of giving Tobagonians autonomy.
On the conversation outside is that Tobago was run by Trinidad, from Trinidad. And there was this sentiment of Trinidad versus Tobago. And during the election campaign of 1976, the big issue on the ground where I was present as a new member of the PNM, having joined the party 2 years before, was that they did not want a ministry for Tobago affairs. Tobago deserved better than that. Tobagonians can do better than that. And Tobagonians would like to administer their affairs in Tobago. That was the election campaign in Tobago. And it sold well because most Tobagonians, the vast majority of Tobagonians, are of that view, Madam Speaker, that Tobago can do better for Tobago and for Trinidad and Tobago if Tobagonians are given responsibility and authority on the island within the unitary state of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, the PNM took a little while to understand that. In fact, some people in the PNM in Trinidad even thought that that was being ridiculous. But it took a while for the politics of that to soak into the PNM. But time is longer than twine. Eventually, Madam Speaker, the very PNM that had a difficulty understanding that did that within the party when we created a Tobago Island Council of the People's National Movement with autonomy for the PNM in Tobago, and that is there operating today, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that election of 76 that generated the end of the Tobago Ministry for Tobago Affairs that nobody wanted in Tobago saw a conversation for internal self-government led by A.N.R. Robinson, who had come out of the PNM and was seeking his political future along that line. Successfully, he did so, Madam Speaker. Alongside him was Dr. Winston Murray. That matter ended up in this parliament. And Dr. Murray rooted his argument in the history of Tobago. And he raised in this house and on the ground outside this whole question of the return of the Tobago House of Assembly as a replacement for the people of Tobago. And that happened, Madam Speaker. Interestingly, it happened when we thought that it had collapsed in this house politically because the mover, Mr. A.N.R. Robinson, he walked out when he thought the PNM would never agree to it. The mover of the motion, I'm surprised, the French say the more things change, the more it remains the same. The mover of the motion today is not winding up this motion. In 1980, the mover of that motion for Tobago self-government did not wind it up. It was A.N.R., it was Winston Murray and Bonnie Padmore. Go to the Hansard and you see that the Tobago House of Assembly, which came into being in 1980 to satisfy that demand on the street in Tobago, those are the two people in this parliament who fought, agreed, cajoled, and got all the colleagues to agree. Surprisingly, when the mover walked out, and we had the Tobago House of Assembly, Madam Speaker. That was 19.
That's a really important point that he made there. A.N.R. Robinson walked out of the parliament. He moved a motion. Then in the course of the debate, he walked out of the parliament. And it is somebody else who wrapped up the debate and got the motion to be passed. That's really critical.
1980. And many people in Tobago thought we've got it. But it can also be shown that progress can be had. Later on in 1996, another movement was made in this house when the election results in Tobago were quite different, not in the PNM's favor, but we supported. I was in the opposition, Madam Speaker. I served 3 terms in opposition in this country, and on the opposition bench, Madam Speaker, this matter of 1996 came up. Act number 40 of 1996 had the support of the opposition. So the creation of the assembly and the amendment to the law The upgrading of the law in 1996 had the PNM support. I had to sit here and hear neophytes from the other side, wet behind the ears, snotty in the nose, saying that the PNM does not support Tobago as an excuse for them not doing what they do now. The only reason why Tobago may not get what these bills promised them is because the opposition today is not the kind of opposition we had in 1996 to support the bill brought by another political party. But Madam Speaker, I'm not surprised that is the case, because if you listen to the debate, much of what was said in repetition by my colleagues on the other side, one could only come to the conclusion that they believe that this matter before the House is a PNM matter. I want to rectify that and correct that now once and for all.
So then, in the course of the debate, what would have happened is the opposition kept pretending that this bill is about the People's National Movement and not the people of Tobago. I want to wrap up what is a saying here this evening by looking at one person. I want to look at this post from Ramona Ramdial, of all persons, right? She was the shadow MP for Tobago when Kamala was in power. And she put up this post, 23 hours ago. So I would say yesterday. And I want to see this with me. Because I had to tell all you, it's rough when I agreeing with Ramona Ramdial. It's real rough when I agreeing with Ramona Ramdial. So listen to what Ramona says. And it's not everything she's saying here that I am agreeing with, but I want to point out a couple things. So she says, my UNC family, we have another reason for wanting new UNC leadership. Today, the opposition missed a golden opportunity at making history and being responsible for giving Tobago self-government when they scuttled the bill by walking out of Parliament before the vote was taken. You, the people, have been supporting Tobago autonomy for many years now. You believe in giving Tobago all the necessary tools to be self-sustaining and less dependent on Trinidad. I want to let her understand something. You see this whole idea of Tobago being dependent on Trinidad? That is a pervasive idea that we have here. We in Trinidad and Tobago, we just talk about Trinbagonian and Trinbagonian identity, but we consistently think of Tobagonians as being a burden on Trinidad. That's how we think about it. We don't really think about it as Trinidad and Tobago as one place. We think Trinidad have all the resources, and Trinidad making all the money, and Tobago always need things from we. That is how we think about it. And Ramona Ramdial hits on a really critical thing here, that many persons from the UNC support base see Tobago as a burden on Trinidad, as dependent on Trinidad. And so Kamala could have killed several birds with one stone, give Tobago a greater autonomy, and at the same time be in a position to say, well, look, Tobago is now less dependent on Trinidad. And she says, the opposition had nothing to lose and everything to gain in kickstarting the process for a more independent Tobago. They brought no amendments to the bill, and that's true. The UNC to date ain't bring no amendments to the bill. And their only argument was that they needed more consultations even after spending 3 years on a JSC doing the work. What happens now that the bill has failed? We go back to the same old rhetoric of those in the parliament blaming each other for Tobago's woes. So the next time you angrily ask, why do we have to give billions to Tobago annually for their upkeep? And this is something that I hear Trinidadians all the time saying. So I was very happy to see Ramona Ramdial speaking to her UNC base, saying, the next time I'll ask why we have to give Tobago billions annually for their upkeep. No, that is because Kamla Prasad Bisesa frittered away an opportunity. Now I want to let her understand something. You will often hear Tobagonians say that they are not mendicant. Mendicant is a very elegant word for saying beggars. They are not beggars. They are a people that have a lot of dignity and they have a lot of pride. And in a situation where they are asking for more opportunities to be able to run their own business the way they want to run their business, I feel that the opposition owed it to Tobagonians, if they're so interested in Tobago, and they so like Tobago, and they so want to support Tobago, and they so want to give Duke and them opportunities in Tobago, they owed it to them to show up in the parliament in the last 2 days and do something. There's a lot more that we have to discuss where this issue is concerned, but I feel like it would be overkill if we went into it. So what I do plan to do is set up a panel discussion with Tobagonians, not myself, with Tobagonians, and let Tobagonians weigh in on this issue so that you, the audience, understands intimately what the concerns are for Tobagonians. But I wanted to talk about the whatlessness, the rank whatlessness of the opposition in the last 2 days. Y'all have yourselves a good evening. Just now, before I bust out, I want to show you something, because I feel like this could be my Friday evening flick here. Let me show you something that land up in my inbox. Is it this boy? Is it this? So this land up in my inbox. All you know is a woman as carries this anything to do with policing in this here country. So on Friday, we have to discuss some policing matters. I have some very interesting policing matters that I feel I need to discuss with you all. I need to bring all you up to speed on a couple of things that happening with policing in this here Trinidad and Tobago. Have a good evening. I'll catch you all on Friday.